Back to the burial mounds. Burial mounds, they are found all around the world. They are also found in the Königsforst or Königsforst in my hometown of Cologne. These particular ones are from the Celts. The Celts? Who are the Celts, you ask? They're either a group of people that spoke the same language or languages that were very much alike, or they were a group of people that had the same culture, the same belief system, or they were just a group of people the Romans and the Greeks called the Celts. You know where none of this information comes from? You guessed it, the Celts. Because the Celts were big believers in oral traditions, and they were conquered by the Romans, and they lived 3 to 2,000 years ago. So everything we know of the Celts, we know from Greek or Roman sources, or we know it from the stuff we dug up. Let's just say the Celts were never one nation or one people, but different tribes with a common denominator. For a long time, the Celts were very successful against the Romans, until Julius Caesar and his Bello Gallico, or Gallic Wars. The Gallic people were Celts, but not all Celts were Gallic people, because the Gallic lived in Gaul, and the Celts spread wider than the area of Gaul. The Celtic tribes who held out the longest against the Romans were those in modern-day Great Britain and Ireland. Ireland was never conquered by the Romans at all, and that is the reason why we still have a glimpse into Celtic languages today. Every language that sounds like you speak dragon, like Cornish, Irish, Gaelic or Welsh. These languages come from Celtic tribes. But back to the burial mounds. In my region there were a lot, and there are still a few you can see and visit. But what was in them? Let me shout out the Römisch-Germanisches Museum or Romano-Germanic Museum here in Cologne, who were so kind to answer my foolish questions and also have in their exhibitions some of the stuff that was found in the burial mounds in this area. Burial mounds are fancy grave sites. Think of them as monuments for the deceased. So the richer and more important you were, the bigger and more spectacular was your burial mound. There could even be on top of the mound additional monuments made out of wood or stone. In southern Germany, they found burial mounds that were up to 10 meters high and 100 meters in length. And inside were jewelry or vases from the Mediterranean. The Celts were famous for their wagons, so there were even whole wagons inside. The burial mounds in my area were a little humbler. Inside they found urns, jewelry and tools, and sometimes cauldrons. And cauldrons were very important in Celtic culture. The Druids used them. Everyday people used them. Also legendary figures of Celtic mythology used them. So let me tell you the story of a magical cauldron of the Celts. Bran the Blessed was a giant and the king of Britain. One day he was sitting at the coast looking out to the sea when he saw 13 ships from Ireland approach. When they landed, it was clear that the king of Ireland, whose name I cannot pronounce, came to ask for the hand of Bran's sister in marriage. Bran thought about this and came to the conclusion this was a good match. He is the king of Ireland after all, and his sister said yes, let's get married. So they threw a big party for the betrothal. On the night of the betrothal, the half-brother of Bran, whose name I also cannot pronounce, returned to Wales. There he saw the festivities, and outside of the festivities he saw strange horses belonging to strange men, and he asked what the hell was going on. He learned that Bran gave away his sister in marriage without consulting him. The half-brother was furious, so he started to mutilate the strange horses. He cut up their lips, he cut up the eyelids of the horses. It was really a horrible scene. When the Irish saw that, they were of course furious, and a big fight ensued between the British and the Irish, until Bran said, "Stop, this is a betrothal party, these are our guests, we cannot behave like this." But the Irish of course were not satisfied. So Bran gifted the King of Ireland a magical cauldron. This cauldron was huge, and when you put a deceased person inside, this person came back to life. And the King of Ireland said, okay, wow, this is a great present, we are fine, let's get on with the partying and let's get on with the wedding. So they returned to Ireland, and there Branwen was greeted as the new queen and the couple was celebrated. The King of Ireland and Branwen got a son, they became parents, and everything seemed fine. Until one day when the council and the King of the Irish started to reflect on what had happened back there in Britain. They reflected reflected on the violence, and they reflected on the mutilation of their horses, and they started to mistreat Branwen. And it got so bad that they kicked her out of the court and made her work in the kitchen. There she led a miserable life, not only for a day or two, but for years. Branwen didn't know what to do, so she tamed a starling and sent this little starling to her brother with a message that told him about her fate. Bran, of course, was furious, so he gathered his half-brother and his army, and Bran walked over to Ireland and the others came over by ship. On Ireland, there was a group of swineherds looking out at the sea when they saw a rock move through the sea. And then they realized this is not a rock, this is King Bran of Britain. When the king of the Irish learned that Bran was on his way, he panicked. He knew he was in trouble. So he told his men, we have to build a house that is big enough for Bran to fit in. When Bran arrived in Ireland with his men and his half-brother, the king of the Irish presented to him a huge house. A house that was big enough to fit even Bran the Giant. And the king of the Irish said, let me throw you a party as an apology for what we did with your sister, and also a party for your nephew who binds us together, because the son of Branwen and me is the future king of the island, and he has also Welsh blood or British blood inside him. Let's forget all the unpleasantries and have a feast. And Bran was quite impressed by all of this. Who was not impressed was his half-brother, whose name I still cannot pronounce. He said,
in about 15 minutes you're either going to be very right or very wrong, brother.
Let me do a security check before we have any alcohol, any festivities inside this house of yours. He went inside and did a security check, and there he saw a lot of sacks of flour that was very suspiciously placed in the main hall where the festivities should take place. So he started to crush these sacks of flowers, and he was right with his suspicions, because inside were Irish fighters who only waited for the festivities to begin to kill all the Welsh people. The king of Ireland said, okay, these are outlaws, this has nothing to do with me. There are some people who are unhappy, but now your half-brother killed all of them and now we can have a party. Bran was like, this seems like an honest mistake of misguided people. Forget about it. All these people who wanted me dead are dead. You have no chance anyway. Let's have a party. So the festivities started, and Bran met his nephew, and his half-brother saw his nephew too, but he was not content. He thought, my nephew is going over to Bran, my brother, and is very charming and cheerful, but he did not really say hello to me. What's wrong with this boy? What's wrong with this kid? So he grew angry and he threw him into the fire. Branwen saw this and wanted to rescue her son from the flames, so she leaped after him. In the last second, Bran rescued his sister from the flames, and he escorted her outside. And that is when the Irish thought, this is our moment. Let's attack the British right now. So they got their magical cauldron and they started attacking the British. Once again, horrible killing ensued. Men of both sides were dying like flies. Even Bran, who returned to the hall, was injured. The Welsh were very good fighters, but the Irish put their dead soldiers in the magical cauldron. They came back to life and started fighting all over again. When the half-brother of Bran saw this, he realized, once again, I'm responsible for this bloodshed. My actions are the reasons why men on both sides are dying like flies, and even my brother Bran is injured. I have to do something to stop this killing now. So he hid under dead Irish soldiers, and when it was his turn to be thrown into the cauldron, he made himself as big and wide as possible and pushed against the sides of the cauldron, shattering it, but dying in the process. Then the killing stopped, but Bran was already fatally wounded. And with his last breath, he asked his men to cut off his head and bring it to the White Hill in London and bury it there. This is where the Tower of London is today. And to face his face towards France, so the French would never dare to attack his beloved Britain. And what do we learn from this story? That there is a crazy one in every family, and that you never know what is buried in these fancy grave sites. This is it for today. Thank you for listening, and I see you next time with an uncanny story about a place you can travel to. Thank you and bye.